Honestly, I kind of don't want to make this video. There are probably fewer topics that are so personal, so emotional, so touchy. And I'm gonna open myself up to all kinds of annoying comments, but you know what? I'm gonna make the video anyway, and this is why. When I was pretty sick, either in modes of starving myself of food or binging on food, I was sent to see tons of specialists and like nothing helped. I felt like nothing helped. All the things that were supposed to help didn't. And I felt like I was just left on my own to figure it out. And it took me like 15 years. So I do want to kind of make the video that I wish I had when I was really struggling. And while I had an eating disorder, this video is not about eating disorder recovery or anything like that. It's really just about how I stopped obsessing over food. Whether you've had an eating disorder, restricted, binged, or just mourned that so much of your brain space was going towards food, these are the things that helped me. I'm not a professional of literally any kind. There's literally nothing I'm professional at, but I've put a lot of time and thought towards having a healthier relationship towards eating habits. And these are some things that helped me. Mwah. As a disclaimer, there will be some reference, obviously, of eating disorders and, you know, some of that in this video. So if that's a trigger to you or just talking about food is a trigger to you, then feel free to skip out on this video. And to those who have maybe like no relationship to disordered eating in any capacity, I want to give a disclaimer to you too, because I'm going to say some things in this video that aren't going to make sense to you. They're just not going to make sense. And it's going to seem maybe crazy, and that's okay. It is very hard to understand if you haven't been in that position. So if this doesn't connect with you, that's okay. No need to leave a comment about it. But for those who know, if you know, you know. Here we go. Okay. A little bit of personal background. I actually really don't like talking about this stuff, and I don't usually talk about it. But for a little bit of background, I have had experience with eating disorders. I was hospitalized when I was 16 with an eating disorder. I had dropped 35 pounds from the weight you see me at now. My heart rate was 40 beats per minute. I was very, very ill. Later on in my life, I was binging and purging. So there were immediate physical health concerns. But to me, the greatest tragedy was this immense amount of mental energy that I was putting towards thinking about food, avoiding food, getting food, resisting food, like just this, it was just immense. The amount of mental brain space that was going towards food. I felt really bad about it. I was aware of how sad it made me that so much of my energy was going there. And even after some of like the physical symptoms of eating disorders stabilized in me, this one symptom remained of this immense obsession about food. So much mental and emotional energy towards food. And to me, it always kind of depressed me, and I couldn't stop. And that kind of food fixation, whether it's starving yourself or binging or purging or just having a casually disordered relationship to eating, it can be really isolating. It can feel so negative. If people don't understand, it becomes even more isolating. You can lose relationships over it. It's so emotional. So to have all this additional emotional negativity added onto it, it's just like the worst, it's the worst possible reaction. So I want to give you a big hug and talk about some things that helped me. Okay, first the heck of all, the first requirement is a lot of time. All of this took a lot of time. So if you're struggling, like don't beat yourself up that it's taking a lot of time. It takes time. I found that when I had disrupted my intuitive relationship to eating, it was difficult to restore it. It was difficult to understand hunger signals and what is normal, eating intuitively, all of that. Like, it is possible to restore it, but it took time. So these aren't instant fixes. It will take you some time. Just know that it's okay. Okay. Probably the biggest, most important next thing I did was that I let myself eat all foods. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to eat. It's so personal, I know that. But for me, what worked was letting myself access the whole spectrum of foods, you know, that I'm not allergic to. Actually, sometimes I do eat foods I'm allergic to. I love mango. I'm very allergic to mango, and I still eat it, and that's not great. But my point is, any food that I can digest, I will have now. Because as soon as you make something off limits, as soon as you're labeling something like bad or untouchable, guess what you're obsessing over? It's a shortcut to obsession. So I let myself eat everything. And personally, I'm much more like a sweet tooth girl. I basically refuse to live a life without dessert. And so I have little bits of dessert in every single day. So it's never off limits. It's never something I've been starved of. It's never something I haven't had in weeks. I'm not obsessing over it because it's been accessible. That still can account for eating in moderation and exerting self-control in certain ways. I'm not eating chocolate every single second I think of it, because that would be every single second. But those things that I love, making sure they're super present in how I eat, was the only way to eliminate binging and obsessing over food. And that took a long time. I would say it took like a year or two to really reset and to let, you know, desserts and breads and all the things feel like a natural integrated part of my life before I stopped obsessing over it. That took like a year or two. Okay, big old tip right here. Instead of tracking calories, please, for the love of God, let's not track calories. Here's something you can track: willpower. Tracking your willpower. Let me explain. When trying to learn to eat, you know, normally again, it takes some restraint. It does. Even without trying to diet, even without trying to lose weight, even when I was trying to gain weight in a healthy way, it still took restraint to like eat how a normal person would eat. How would a normal person eat? Like, I felt like a crazy person sometimes. It still took a lot of energy and restraint and willpower. And I realized it was really important for me to track for myself how my willpower ebbed and flowed throughout the day. The amount of willpower you have is finite. It's not infinite. It doesn't go on forever. If I wake up, okay, I've got like a full battery of willpower. Cool. Easy to make good decisions for myself in the morning. Easy to not restrict or not binge, whatever your goal is. But as the day goes on, okay, I've been using up some of my willpower, and then something stressful happens at work, and then something emotional happens with family, and it is eroding my willpower. The stress, the emotion, the hours in the day, they are all eroding your willpower. And for me, the lower my willpower is, the more I'm obsessing about the goal, the more I'm having to mechanically think about it. You know, in the morning when my willpower is high, it's not as hard to like eat normally. But when at the end of the day, when my willpower is really low, it is taking every ounce of energy and restraint and mental focus to eat normally. So that's when it becomes obsessive, is when my willpower is low. So I plan for that. I plan my meals by my willpower. Okay, I recognize my willpower is highest in the morning, it's lowest in the evening. So I do like lighter meals in the morning and expect to have bigger meals in the evening. And I'm not saying that's how you should eat. I'm saying that's how I take into account my own willpower, ebbs and flows. Lots of people say, you're not supposed to eat a lot in the evening. Listen, I'm not a researcher, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I'm barely a person. I don't know what the science is behind that, but I really don't care. What's more important than like, well, a couple calories you're gonna burn or something, I don't care. I'm trying to release mental energy. And for me, it's easy to not obsess over food in the morning. It's way harder for me to not obsess over food in the evening. If your goal is to be obsessing about food less, you have to be working with your willpower, not like all the strain and all the effort and all the trying means more obsession. As a specific call out for me, I make sure in every meal I eat protein and a starch. For me, that's because that's the only way I feel satiated. And that's personal. It depends whatever makes you feel satiated. I'm not saying you have to eat what I eat, but just like thinking about what actually leaves you feeling satiated. There's periods of my life where I only ate salad, and guess what? I was hungry all the time. And if you're feeling hungry and not satiated all the time, then you're thinking about food all the time, and then you're obsessing over food. So a huge key to slowly get yourself from obsessing over food is to make sure you are feeling satisfied. It feels like no duh to say it, but this was like a huge turning point for me with someone with disordered eating. Making sure I'm satisfied after every meal. For me, that means a protein and a starch, which can be, you know, bread, potatoes, like something hearty, whatever. I think it can be different from person to person. But if I'm just eating a salad, I don't care if it's the same amount of calories. You know, if I ate like a sandwich, bread and meat, and I ate a salad and both had the same amount of calories, I would still feel hungry after the salad. I don't know, it just like doesn't satiate me. And there's science behind that obviously, but I also know it's like differs from person to person. I think the point is just like what makes you feel satisfied. You need like a healthy sense of satisfaction, or then you're thinking about the next meal immediately. Obsession. Okay guys, we gotta identify triggers, y'all. It's kind of an overused word, but triggers. Gotta identify them. For me, and I think for most people, it's pretty emotional. Family stress, holidays, things getting out of my control. All of these things can kind of send me into obsession. I think a lot of us have our obsessive relationship with food because that provided some kind of comfort when things were chaos or things were upsetting or things were sad. It was a comfort. So the mind goes there for me when things like start getting out of my control. And so once I identified those triggers, I tried to come up with some like replacement activities that were comforting to me in a time of stress. For me, that could be doing a craft. It could be like organizing a cabinet, something that physically engages my body so that when I am like starting to spin and starting to obsess, I don't want to lean on my willpower to control the obsession. That's like more restraint, it's more energy. I want to do something that just like naturally takes my mind off of it. Like getting in a craft, doing a puzzle, or organizing, or something you love, something where your mind is naturally engaged, happily engaged, so that you're not obsessing about not obsessing. That like more tension and more trying isn't the answer. It's just more obsession. So I try to have like replacement activities that I genuinely love, and I've like thought about them beforehand, so when I'm kind of hitting the danger zone, I can go to them. This video is sponsored by Thrive Market. I love them, and I'm gonna tell you a bit about them in case you wanna know more about them, and then you will know more about them. That's how the system works. This is always a fun sponsorship for me to do because I've always eaten all my groceries that I've ordered from Thrive Market by the time I'm supposed to film it. So here are a bunch of like empty boxes of things I've already eaten. Thrive Market is a membership-based grocery store with savings on every order. I love it because I'm lazy as all get out. I basically, if I can't order groceries to my door, there will not be groceries ever. I love having my groceries delivered to me. And also it's all these brands that I loved getting elsewhere, but they are cheaper through Thrive Market. On my last grocery order, I saved $13. That was just in one order. I am gonna give a shout out to this specific probiotic soda, which I love. You probably see me drinking this a lot. Hello, can you focus? This is the Poppy probiotic soda, which I got influenced by another influencer because I'm weak. But that's like my favorite soda now. And these are my favorite bars. I've destroyed these boxes, but these are my favorite snack bars when I'm running around. Sometimes when I'm like filming in the car, I'm snacking on these Aloha bars. In between, I got a variety pack. Okay, good job to me. If you're somebody who is interested in health food groceries, but you don't live near a health foods grocery store, Thrive Market is a really good option. Or if you do follow a specific nutrition lifestyle, 2 of my siblings are gluten-free because of celiacs, and Thrive Market has some of my favorite gluten-free brands. Simple Mills crackers are the best gluten-free crackers. People don't even know they're gluten-free crackers. And if you've ever had a gluten-free cracker, it's usually the flavor of chalk. There's different membership options. You can do month to month. If you just want to commit for a month, it's $12, or you can do annually at $5 a month. And if you want to check it out and join Thrive Market today, you can get 30% off your first order plus a free gift worth up to $60 by going to thrivemarket.com/carolinewinkler. So check out the link in the description to get 30% off your first order. Have a blast. Nobody can tell you what to do. Okay? And that's all I have to say about that. Okay, I gotta say something controversial, maybe, for a second. I feel like on social media, there's like really only like a very specific way that you're allowed to talk about food and food relationships. And it's, you know, just about health. We're all just about our health. We're all just about our health. Okay, are we? None of the people I know in my life are that obsessed with their health. Like, they're all still like people who are vain and like care how they look because they're kind of vain creatures. Like, I think that's pretty human, but like no one's allowed to acknowledge that on the internet. It's so weird. I don't think it's very honest, and I don't think it's very helpful because I don't think it applies to anybody. We all have a little vanity in us. You know, we agree that it's okay to have physical preferences about how your hair looks or physical preferences about how I dress, but you're not allowed to have any other physical preferences. Like, we all just have to be enlightened out of that, which I just don't think that's realistic. I don't know any people like that. I've never met any human beings like that. And this is especially true around like eating disorder recovery. Basically, the only thing I've ever heard when you're recovering from an eating disorder is basically like, you're not allowed to care what you look like anymore. Which, that just doesn't like feel, that's not something that's asked of any other person. That like, you're not allowed to have like any preference about what you look like anymore. It just doesn't feel very actionable to me. It doesn't feel very like practical. It doesn't feel very helpful. I do have preferences on how I look. But to me, the difference is that I will no longer let my physical preferences damage my health, damage my relationships, damage being balanced in other areas of life. I am not going to let my pursuit of a physical preference come at odds with how my body is naturally. I'm like a very kind of bottom heavy person. For me to pursue a body type of like really wafy long legs, I would have to do really unhealthy things to my body. So like, I'm not gonna do that. My point is that like, it actually annoys the crap out of me that there's this attitude like we're not allowed to have a physical preference with how we look. Yeah, you are, and you probably do. I think it's really important to not let other people tell you what that preference is supposed to be, to not let that preference come at the detriment to the other connection points in your life and your connection to yourself, and to at the same time, like, work really hard on learning to love yourself in the very different forms you come in. That's a really hard thing for me. I've been working on it for decades, and I'm like, still not all the way there. There's work to be done, but I'm working on it. That's all I gotta say. I don't know. Big rule for me, I absolutely refuse to crash diet. Absolutely refuse. A lot of time I've hit those days where I'm feeling really down about how much I've eaten or something, or how much I've strayed from my plan. And then there's that thought, well, I could do a crash diet. I could just do some like really extreme, expedited, condensed thing to feel like I'm getting back on track. No, you're not. No, you are not. At least I am not. For me, as someone who's had an obsessive relationship to food at times, crash dieting is not an answer. It is just gonna send me in a spiral. I'm gonna have like reactive responses. Crash dieting is not an option. It is not an option. I don't think it should be an option for many people, but you know, I'm not actually here to tell you what to eat, whatever. But I do think there's still like a healthy and reasonable and sustainable way to feel like you're getting back to your goals. So let's say it's the holidays. I've done lots of indulging. I've really participated in all the festive fun and all these social events around drinking and food and blah, blah, blah. And holidays are over. I'm ready to kind of like start working back to some of my goals of eating in a more balanced way. I make sure that at a bare minimum, the way that I adjust what I'm eating is a way I would be happy to eat long term. That's a bare minimum for me. So I'm not gonna be going on some kind of regimen where I'm never eating dessert again, because that's not a way I'm willing to live long term. For me, even like a reset period still has to be a way that I would be happy to eat for the rest of my life. A balanced way that includes sometimes going to restaurants, that includes having an extra indulgence with a friend, that includes not beating myself up about whatever extra caloric items. Maybe I'm being a little more mindful, but it's still a way that I would be happy to eat long term. Because if it's something that I can only maintain short term, then it's something that is gonna require a lot of concentration and a lot of focus and a lot of restraint, a lot of willpower, and it's gonna lead to obsessing. Guarantee it's gonna lead to obsessing over food. So I don't do it. trust your hunger signals. I think it was like the hardest thing to restore when you're recovering from like a disordered relationship to eating. This idea of eating intuitively, I was just like, what even is that? What even is that? I literally remember going out to dinner with friends and I would have to like look at their plate to see what a portion size was. Not that I didn't intellectually know, but I just like, everything gets so jumbled. Intuition and what hunger signals are telling you, you can really kind of obliterate those signals when you're going through some of these obsessive behaviors. So working on restoring that was really tricky. And it became really important for me. Let's say every morning I wake up and I eat, like I said, I eat usually a smaller breakfast because that works for me. But then like one day I would wake up and just be starving out of control for no discernible reason. Like, I don't know, maybe I exercised yesterday more, did I? I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with my period. Maybe it's something emotional. Maybe there's some reason I like burned a lot of energy over the night. Like, I don't know what I was doing in the night, but woke up and I'm starving. And that would be so scary to me because I'd be like, well, I can't like eat more than I usually eat because my whole plan is that I'm gonna eat the small breakfast, blah, blah, blah. You gotta start trusting your hunger signals. So these days, yes, I usually eat a small breakfast, but on the day when I wake up starving, I trust that it's for a reason. And I trust that when I eat a bigger breakfast, my body needs it for whatever reason. I'm burning the energy, I'm using the fuel for some reason extra. I eat the bigger breakfast when I feel I'm really needing it. And just trusting, in the beginning it's blind trust. It's not a ton of trust, it's just like, okay, hoping that it does kind of balance out, and it does. What really doesn't work for me is waking up starving and then just ignoring that all day long. Talk about willpower down. And then I'm thinking about food and then I'm back to obsessing. Doesn't work. Try to listen to when you wake up starving. You don't know why, doesn't make a ton of sense, doesn't really matter. I need a bigger breakfast for some reason, and trusting that like your body will figure it out the rest of the day. Okay, y'all, here's a big one. On that note, talking about balance, I needed to rethink balance. I don't know how about you guys think about balance, but I used to think of like balanced eating as being like every single day is perfectly balanced. Which like life doesn't happen that way. You got a weirdo like happy hour you have to go to and a holiday party and like 3 people's wedding in one weekend because all your friends are getting married at the same time. I'm not feeling a lot of balance every single day. I kind of reframed how I think about balance with eating, and it's no longer within a day. It's more within a week. You know, if things seem super out of whack for like a whole week straight, then let's think about adjusting some things. But I'm not gonna freak out over just like not having perfect balance within one day. And I also needed to define like what balance is to me. To me, balance, it includes getting a lot of nutrients, it includes feeling satiated, includes indulging, and it also includes like not indulging every single little whim to eat that I have all the time. I don't indulge every single carnal impulse in any other realm of my life all the time. So balance includes getting to override some of those impulses and also getting to indulge some, and also getting a lot of nutrition, and also eating stuff that like has zero nutritional value at all because it's fun. How about that? So that's what balance is to me. I really don't think about like just balance in a given day. I'm not gonna beat myself up over having a wacko day. They're gonna happen. That's actually like part of life. That's part of enjoying interactions. So I think more kind of about a week. Like, let's find the balance within the week. We had a couple, you know, super indulgent days, then I can have a couple days where like, I'm not indulging every impulse, that's okay. This is a little bonus. This is a bonus. My knees kind of hurt, so I keep moving them around. This is a bonus. This doesn't really have to do with obsessing over food, but if you have a warped relationship to food, I'm guessing you might also have a warped relationship to your body, and this is one of the best things I ever did for myself. You know, this video is not really about body image, but obviously there's a lot of crossover. One of the best things I ever did for myself was to purge my Instagram feed, purge my influencer feed, and to be really intentional about the role models I was putting in front of me. Like, you know, there's some great fitness influencers, They just have a body type that I will never healthily have. I could never have in a healthy way. And to see them all the time kind of subconsciously put a goal in my head that was not a healthy goal for me. Because, to quote one of my favorite movies, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter says, "What do we covet, Clarice? We covet the things we see every day."
And how do we begin to covet, Clarice? We begin by coveting what we see every day.
We covet what we see every day. So if you are inundating yourself with images of bodies that you will never have, it kind of, for me, it became my focus and my goal. So I became really intentional about like the bodies I was looking at all the time, bodies that look like me. And I'm actually not talking about weight. I'm more talking about body type and proportions. So for me, that's like people who are more bottom heavy. That's just how my body is always gonna be. Whether I gain 50 pounds or lose 50 pounds, I'm always gonna be heavier on bottom. And so like leaning into the fashion that hypes that up the most, the exercises that hype that up the most. Then again, I'm like working with my genetics. I'm working with what's given to me in a healthy way. It's like optimism around your body type and putting your positive spin on it. Because okay, if you're short, no, you're not tall. But if you're short, you get to do all these cool short things. And if you're tall, no, you're not short, but you get to do all these cool tall things. Like, you can spin them either way. I think it's about focusing, you know, how you focus your energy. Okay, yeah. The reason this is really helpful for me too is because at the root of my relationship to food and my struggle with body image is this feeling that I'm not lovable. Like, that's the underlying feeling, this fear that I'm not lovable. And it's a funny thing because I can look at someone else, I can look at other people with any kind of body type, really, and see clearly how they're lovable. It's not hard for me to see in other people. But somehow, you know, it's hard to see for myself. So something about like making sure I'm seeing other people that I can relate to and seeing their lovableness reminds me like, oh, maybe I'm lovable too. It was a long journey for me and I'm still working on it. I'm still definitely working on it, but it's a huge point of pride for me that I am at like the state of functionality and balance even that I'm at right now. I'm gonna say I'm the most impressed with me for it. I think it's the hardest thing I've done. I remember being like in a really sick state and just being, and you hear this a lot of like how it'll never go away and you'll never feel differently and you can't imagine feeling differently. You can't imagine putting your mental energy somewhere else. And it did take time and it did take like trying things I wasn't quite comfortable with, but it also required trusting me and like trusting my ability to learn about myself and my ability to push myself. Yeah, so much about trusting yourself. My point is that like you can change it. I freed up a lot of my mental energy. It's still something I'm working on, but I feel really happy with the changes and I hope this helps somebody and I hope you get a little bit of relief. It's the holidays right now, I think. I hope you're having a happy holiday and indulging in all the ways that make life feel good. I am taking a few weeks off for personal reasons. I won't be back with a video for several weeks, but I will be back. I will be back. I promise I will be back and I will see you guys at that time. Okay. I appreciate you all. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.